Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to take away voting rights, but only if you're a Democrat.
What I think would be something that some red states could propose is, well, okay, if Democrat voters choose to flee these blue states where they cannot tolerate the living conditions, they don't want their children taught these horrible things, and they really change their mind on the types of policies that they support, well, once they move to a red state, guess what? Maybe you don't get to vote for 5 years. You can live there, you can work there, but you don't get to bring your values that you basically created in the blue states you came from by voting for Democrat leaders and Democrat policies.
Nothing says hating your neighbor, or your new neighbor, I should say, than trying to deny them the right to vote because of where they came from and their political leanings. Great. Marjorie Taylor Greene, great uniter. Oh, actually, you know what? She is a great uniter. She's uniting everyone against her with her hateful takes. Of course. Of course. Oh, you know what? Here's the thing. She's undemocratic. This is literally undemocratic. Saying that, you don't have my same political beliefs and you come from a different state. Well, I guess you get to lose your literal rights under the Constitution. Hey, aren't I a great constitutional conservative? No, you haven't read it, just like you haven't read the Bible. You fraud. You hack. I know, horrible politician, horrible person. Now, here's the thing. I don't like the way Republicans vote. I say it all the time. I'm very upset with the way that some Republicans vote for Republicans and some of the people that they vote for. Do I think that it's okay to take away their right to vote? No. Again, that's literally undemocratic. Wow. Now, I would never consider such a thing. Again, it's anti-American, it's undemocratic. So what does that make Marjorie Greene? Now, let's get to the details, right? So she talks about, it's these people. They went and created the policies and then fled the blue states because of their policies. So are you sure it's liberal policies? I mean, which ones, right? Which policies are left-wing? Okay, why don't we look at first why people might move to the red states? Might have something to do with the cost of living in, yes, big cities, blue states. That's a fair point. You want to point out that, hey, it's kind of expensive to live in Los Angeles and San Francisco, New York. Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. You'd be absolutely correct. It is very difficult to live there because of the cost of living. But that might have something to do with other factors. Not really progressive, leftist, liberal policy. And actually, let's talk about homeownership, right? Or housing. Now, there is a housing issue in California, in New York, in these, bigger cities. So that might have something to do with the fact that foreign investors and giant banks flush with handouts from stock buybacks, for example, that we refuse to ban, by the way. And by the way, it's both mainly Republicans, but also Democrats that are not really in favor of banning stock buybacks. These banks and foreign investors will go and buy up all the housing, and that drives up home prices. Interesting. There's also, of course, the issue of NIMBYism, and by the way, NIMBYing for all of those who are not familiar with that term, it just means not in my backyard. There are people that will look at, for example, affordable housing and go, not in my backyard. That's going to lower my property values. Now, understand that there's a lot of liberals that do that. That's fair. We're fair on this show. It's not necessarily a liberal thing, though. Now, not only that, but you have wages that cannot keep up with the cost of living. You have homeless people, by the way, in this country that work, but still cannot afford housing, shelter. It's a staggering amount. A 2021 study from the University of Chicago estimated that 53% of people living in homeless shelters and 40% of unsheltered people were employed. They had jobs. We live in a country where people work and still can't afford to pay rent, much less own a home. This is ridiculous. Broken country that is a huge problem in cities. And yes, by the way, blue states as well. But it's an issue all over the country. That said, one of the reasons that people move from blue states to red states is because the cost of living is lower there, because the standard of living is lower there. It's not because of like wokey schools or anything like that. No, it comes to, I can't really afford to live here. And because of all these aforementioned issues. Now, the thing is, again, where she says, oh, it's the liberal policies that are doing that. No, it's not liberal policies. It's corporate-friendly policies that tend to be championed, by the way, by both parties that tend to create these issues. Deregulation of the banks, allowing corporate stock buybacks, again, not raising the minimum wage, etc. Politicians, yes, that will talk a good game, that will, and say, oh, yeah, we're going to raise the minimum wage, and then they don't. These are all issues, by the way, that are made possible by one thing. You want to guess what that is? Political corruption. Corporations and wealthy donors buy politicians with legalized bribes in the form of campaign contributions. The donors then get whatever they want from all the politicians. And by the way, cities in red states also have the same issues. Okay? And by the way, the entire country has the same issue. It's called capitalism. Finally, addressing how Greene, and this is her whole push, right, of why we need a national divorce. Because we're so different, red and blue America. So different. No, it turns out that the left and right actually agree on quite a bit, at least when it comes to policy issues. For example, allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. The vast majority of Americans, both Republicans and Democrats, agree with that. Regulating corporations, universal health care, taxing the rich, getting rid of money in politics. The majority of voters on both sides of the spectrum absolutely agree. So here's the thing, though. The reason that we're so divided right now are culture warriors like Marjorie Greene, who are getting you to hate your neighbor. They're trying to divide us, so guess what? They don't actually have to do their job as politicians to solve these issues. And while they're not solving the issues, they're taking our money and putting it in their pocket. That's what's going on here. That's the reality that Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to want to ignore.